Welcome to Raising Special Needs Kids. Real conversations, real hope, and real stories for families walking the special needs journey. Our host is Monica Schmelter, sister to a brother with Down syndrome, and we're here to remind you, you're not alone.
I want to welcome you all today to the Raising Special Needs Kids podcast. I'm Monica Schmelter, and as we talk with different parents with special needs children, we want to be able to share the joys, the challenges, the blessings, even those funny moments. I am not a special needs parent, but I am a special needs sibling, and I was my younger brother, Donnie. I was his fiercest protector, and having him in my life just taught me so many really, really important lessons about compassion, kindness, and patience as well. My guest today is Laurel Gallant. And Laurel, it's good to have you here. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I think I said your last name the wrong way.
It makes no difference.
No difference. All right.
All
well,
good.
Thank you for your grace. So you have a son named Wyatt, who's 10.
Yes, that's right.
Tell us a little bit about him.
So Wyatt has a complicated medical history. His main issue has changed his life quite a bit. But even before that, he began with other diagnoses that had already made his life a little bit complicated. But through all of it, what strikes me the most about him is he's just so joyous. He finds happiness in the silliest of things and in the moments with the neighborhood kids and his little brother. And he's just he finds positivity. He finds it very difficult, of course, but he also keeps coming back to those happy moments. So that's really what gets me about him.
Yeah. And that's got to bring you so much peace and just so much joy to see that your son, regardless of challenges, that there's still joy, that he's looking at things from a positive attitude. So we could all learn a lot from your Wyatt.
That's what we're hoping for, yes, because these things can overwhelm anyone, especially a child.
Yes. And we want to help our children through things, and as parents, right, be good parents. And I would imagine for you, I'm a mom too. Sometimes you just wonder, am I doing the right things? Have you had those kinds of thoughts with Wyatt?
Oh, definitely. I mean, other people have often questioned even the things he's been through, like that he had to have brain surgery. And all the way along that journey, you question, did I pick the right choice? Did we do the right thing? And all you can do is go on what you've been told and what's likely to happen and pray that God will push you in the right direction, so to speak, and that you'll be able to look at all the information you have and make the best decision for what they have to deal with. And then hopefully everything turns out the way it's supposed to. Mm-hmm. That's always what I'm worried about, is if I make the wrong call, am I going against what was supposed to happen? Do you know what I mean by that?
I absolutely know what you mean. And I think that is a fear of most every parent, right? If we're going to make a mistake, I'd rather make it on myself.
Yes.
I could take that, but causing one of our mistakes to cause something to our children, that's a lot of pain to bear. But I think you said something that's so important. What we can do is we can pray and try to get all of the information that we can about the options and about outcomes. Mm-hmm. And then we make the best decision we can, knowing that God is leading us, that He's going to help us. But that's a lot to wrap your mind around. And to have a little one that has to have brain surgery, that is indeed very hard. And were you saying other people question that?
There was just some people, when they realized what the outcomes of the surgery were, it makes you wonder, was it worth it? Is it what we should have done? And the problem is, we are now educated in what he had and the complications and all that. So we know we did the right thing for his future, and that's just how it went. But when you don't know a lot about what he was facing, it makes you wonder, was that really worth it for what he's dealing with now, if that makes sense? So I'm just praying that people will understand that you don't go into a decision like that lightly, and that if something does go not the way you expect, then you didn't do it in a misinformed way, and that it makes it that you can still give him the best life possible and encourage him to, like you said, follow the joy and find moments in your day that although life is hard, there's also really great moments.
Yeah. And I always say every good moment is a good moment. So we've got to celebrate that because we all have storms and trials in life, whether it's a special needs family or it isn't. It's weathering those storms and finding the joy that makes the difference, as we grow as parents, as we grow, as people. So Wyatt, he's 10, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so is he in school or homeschooled?
So he's homeschooled now. He was in school before the surgery, and he was in school a little bit after the surgery back in Canada. And then when we got here to the US, we ended up homeschooling him for the rest of grade 1. And then we ended up just continuing because at first, after his recovery, he wasn't able to make it through a school day. He would be falling asleep, and brain surgery is quite difficult on the child. So we kept him home for grade 2, thinking we would see how he's doing by the end of grade 2. And in the end, he's actually flourishing in a homeschool. He's doing really well. And before the surgery, he already had separation anxiety. He has autism and ADHD. So he already was having trouble even being at school in the first place, where now that we homeschool him, he is thriving. He's very good at it. And his little brother is also homeschooled. Now, he probably could make it through public school, and he's very social, and he would be fine. He just doesn't want to be away from Wyatt, and he wants to learn at home too. So it's working very well so far.
And it's home.
Mm-hmm.
And so your second little guy, his name is Lincoln.
That's right.
So they're both homeschooled. So that means you're one really busy mom, doesn't
Sometimes.
it? Was homeschooling ever something that you had considered?
No, actually, because my husband and I, we were both public school in Canada. Our parents were, it was never something. It's also harder where we came from. There's a lot of paperwork to homeschool back there. So a few friends of ours had done it, but not too many. It's not as common as it is down here. So it wasn't something we had even considered until he couldn't make it through public school. And so it just became kind of thrown at us, if that makes sense. And it did. We definitely questioned it at first because I'm not trained as a teacher. My husband we both worked in schools, but we're not educated in a teacher kind of way. But in the end, with God's grace and some patience for yourself, you find out how the children learn and you just grow into it. And it actually works really well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just most any parent, if they're not, an educator, if they're not a teacher by trade,
Mm-hmm.
you would think, well, am I qualified? Can I really do this? But what I hear you saying is God's helping you through the journey, just like he helps us on all the other journeys if we ask him. And you see both of your boys thriving.
Mm-hmm.
I love it that you said Lincoln doesn't like to be away, from Wyatt. How do they get along?
They have their challenges. They're siblings
Like
like
all
any other.
siblings,
Exactly
yeah.
right. But most of the time, Lincoln understands what Wyatt's been through and how hard each day can be in different ways. He's got to an age now, he's 6 now, so he sometimes likes to poke the bear, as we call it. But I mean, what 6-year-old doesn't to their big brother, right? So
that's the whole thing. I can remember between my little sister and me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting frustrated at each other, getting angry at each other. My brother that had Down syndrome, he's 11 years younger. So there wasn't as much sibling rivalry between us because of the age difference.
Yes.
But my sister, I definitely remember there was some teasing. You called it poking the bear. That went both ways.
Yes.
So that's just a part of it. But it sounds like Lincoln really loves his brother also.
They love each other, absolutely. We're just trying to get him to understand that poking the bear in this situation is probably not going to turn out as well as he thinks. But he's learning fairly quickly. And he knows day to day what will make Wyatt feel better if he's having a hard day, which is so great to see at 6. He's starting to understand the little things he can do to make his life a bit easier. And I don't think he fully understands the scope of how hard it can be and how much his life is impacted by it. But he definitely is starting to see the little things he can do as a 6-year-old anyway.
And that's a wonderful lesson to learn at any age, but at 6 years old, just the compassion, the kindness. Now I know, Laurel, that we are all more than our diagnoses, but you mentioned he was diagnosed with Asperger's, is that right?
Yes.
And that was kind of his original diagnosis.
Yes, exactly.
But now he has another diagnosis that's a really hard name, but it's called HH. What is that?
Yes, so it stands for hypothalamic hamartoma. And basically, what it is a small growth or lesion, a tumor on the hypothalamus itself. So when you have that, depending on the location of the tumor, depends on what symptoms it gives you, if any at all. So if it's on one section, you end up with rage attacks and epilepsy. And if it's on another section, depending on the location of it, it can give you precocious puberty. So Wyatt's was mostly to the rage and epilepsy side. So that's how he began. He had his first seizures that we knew of anyway at 3.5, the full-blown epileptic seizures. He did have we didn't know about it at the time, but the main symptom that you see, if it's fairly obvious, is called a gelastic seizure. And that's where the child laughs or cries inappropriately for what's going on. And at the time, we didn't realize what we were seeing. We thought he was just a very happy little guy who laughed all the time. But it turned out that laughing in his sleep was also not normal. So I thought, oh, what a happy guy. He's having great dreams. And the doctor says, no, that's not. That's too much every day. And so she says, no, this is what he's suffering from. So in the end, what they do is they decide if your symptoms are enough that they're going to deal with the tumor or just leave it. Because if you're not experiencing a whole lot, they can leave it for a while and just watch and wait and see. But if you're already impacted the way he was in full-blown rage attacks and epilepsy by 4.5 and 5. It was just getting worse. And they said that it would start to get where every seizure affects your brain. The electricity overwhelms your brain cells and it does do damage, and that to your heart as well. So it's really important to get the epilepsy under control and to make sure that you're watching because it can cognitively affect them as well. And they said if you don't deal with it, if it is getting overwhelming for the system, it can reduce IQ, it can affect their future. It can be a really big problem, even psychologically. Some of the people who didn't get diagnosed or misdiagnosed, they ended up institutionalized because they didn't realize what the rage was coming from. So they just see it as a behavioral issue or something like that. So now they know better, and now they're getting better at spotting it and treating it early. But the treatment itself also comes with some complications sometimes, depending on how it goes. So
that is really hard. I would think to see your child have a seizure.
yes.
Yeah, and when you talk about the rage and the other things, all of that is extremely hard. How important, was your faith to you, or has your faith been in all of this?
It's been difficult. So especially the rage, you don't realize until the doctor says that's what it seems behavioral, right? You seem like you have a child that's just out of control, even though you know in your heart it's not really proportional to what's going on at the time. So you're thinking, what is happening here, right? It's just overwhelming. So at first, your faith becomes part of what you look to for, okay, I can handle this. I need help with this. This is getting overwhelming. And you progress into, why is this happening? I remember after surgery and the other complications started showing up post-surgically, I started wondering, everyone has a bit of a question of faith, like, why is this happening to a child who already has so much going on? And I ended up in a special needs mom support group at a local church and places like that. And there's some really great books out from people that are special needs parents, like you're doing, basically, helping each other get through these things. And especially from a church point of view, that was an exceptional way to look at these things. And it really helped me get through it because there was a year or two there that were really difficult into why is this happening and what can I do about it? Obviously not a whole lot. Praying that God would take it away. There's still a lot of people that are praying that God would just remove it from him. And I think it's hard to stick with that when you're not seeing it happening. But there's also the other side of the coin of, is it supposed to be happening for some reason or another that we don't know about?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And those, I think, are the things that we just trust God
Exactly.
and his sovereignty, even though we really don't understand.
Yeah.
And we know that prayer is powerful. We know at the same time, though, God does not always answer our prayers the way that we pray them. I believe he's always working in response to a genuine prayer.
Yes.
And he's doing something, but his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And sometimes we have to accept that, even though for me that can be really hard to accept because I want to see it, I want to know. But that's what trust and that's what faith are all about. I'm so glad you were able to find a support group at a church, because I would think that community has to be extremely helpful. I know with my brother, he was born in 72. So there wasn't as much known or support groups. Like you just kind of in isolation figured it out.
That's true. Yeah.
And, love had to be enough. And so that's what, we loved on my brother and gave him the best that we could, but there really wasn't community. So community, has it been helpful for you?
Absolutely. And I think nowadays it's a lot easier because a lot of the people who have, not just with what Wyatt deals with, but a lot of the people that have mentioned stories like that, they say social media, although it can be an awful place sometimes, it can also be very, very comforting because it's a lot easier to find a support group, even if they're not in your area. You can do virtual meetings, or you can just meet friends and call them because they happen to share the same lifestyle as you. And they understand more than most.
Yeah. Well, because there's a bond between special needs families.
Yes.
I know whenever, I'm out in public, like if I see someone that has Downs or something like that, I feel that affinity, that connection, because only those families know exactly what that's like.
Yes.
Even though it looks different for each special needs child, we know that what it's like to have someone in your family that you love so dearly, but that there are certain limitations there that, I can remember as a teenager just being 100% sure that I could teach my brother to count change like from a $20 bill.
Oh.
And so I tried really, really hard, everything that I could, only to finally come up with me to just accept and understand that that was beyond his capability. But, at least I tried.
Yeah, that's amazing of you.
At least I tried. And so I think those kinds of things, like when I think of your little guy, Lincoln, the lessons that you learn are just so important to character development and just loving even on other people and being a more understanding person. I would think, would you call this like a searching journey for you?
I would say, yes, a lot of it has made me wonder, why am I here as well? You know how there's always, you're here for a lesson or there's something you're supposed to get out of this. So it's made me wonder for sure how I can do better in my own personal life, but as well as just being his mom and making sure that I'm giving him and Lincoln everything I can, and trying to grow myself to make sure that I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. And that's, that's a lot. I probably would have never come to faith in Christ without my brother. His birth, and at first they didn't think he was going to live for very long. And so there were just a lot of really dark things, but I loved him so much. And, it was just like instant love, and I got to be the big sister. And so he impacted my life in serious ways, but also in funny ways. Like there's a lot of good, like, right, a lot of bright spots that he brought. Have you found that you've really had to advocate for your son?
Yes, that's one thing. It's been very difficult for me because I hate conflict. I hate arguing with people. I'm the kind of person where if my meal shows up wrong, I'll just eat it. I'm not going to say anything. But when it came to Wyatt, it quickly became, if I don't speak up, no one's going to. And of course, politely, but firmly, and saying this is what he needs, especially when it comes to his autism issues. Like, he's very nervous around needles, so counting, he needs to count so that he's able to do it without panicking. So there's been moments where people have not respected that, and it's actually traumatized him. So there's some things I've learned along this journey of that we have to be advocates for these children, especially if you know ahead of time they're going to need something, you need to say something. And it's really, really hard, especially if you're a person that hates conflict, but you have to be there because nobody else will be, because they don't know them as well.
Well, they don't. And no one is going to care for our children as much as we do. And I'm like you in that I don't like conflict, and I would eat my meal at a restaurant too. Even if it's wrong, I don't send it back and I don't complain. It's just not a big enough deal, right?
Exactly.
That's not my first dinner. It won't be my last, so I just let it go. But when it comes to your child, like, and when it came to my brother, like if he was being bullied or if I didn't stand for it, like,
Mhm.
because that was my little brother, and I just was not going to stand
Good for
for
you.
it. So being an advocate is something that I hear over and over from moms and from dads, learning to speak, and like you said, firmly but politely.
Yes, you still have to respect who you're speaking to, but they do need to understand what your child or your family member needs.
And do most people respond well?
Most of the time, we've been part of a group where they teach young, I think they're residency students, young doctors that are up and coming, about how to deal with medically complex families and special needs families. And it's been really interesting because they've seen some of the older generation doctors, not all of them, obviously, but some have, they've been at it for so long, they're quite set in their ways. And they've said they want to do a little bit differently in listening when it comes to parents or family members that are part of these, because they've said, you guys have been in this for many years. We're just getting going. You know, we're not doctors, we're not trained as doctors, but we've definitely seen 14 specialists or whatever you have going on in that family. So they said they want to be part of learning to do a little bit better when it comes to listening and helping families like this.
That is absolutely wonderful. Like,
Mhm.
that is really good news to hear. I know that my parents didn't have that.
Oh, no?
Yeah, so they didn't. It just was a lot. The medical community, basically, when he was born, just wanted him to be institutionalized. So,
That happens so much.
yeah.
Yes.
And to my parents' credit, they weren't having it. Like, they
Good.
didn't understand. Uh, I don't think they even knew what Down syndrome was, but we all knew that we loved my brother and he wasn't going anywhere but with us. And we were going
Good.
to advocate for him, as best we could. What is something, because we're almost out of time, what is something that you might like to share with another special needs parent that maybe is hurting or, maybe asking the same questions? Why my kid? Why am I here? What would you say to them?
I think the one thing that helped me, there are many things that help, but I think the biggest thing that helped me at that point, but also in the journey in general, was definitely the community of other parents and families, even if they don't have the same issues as you, the same medical issues, but even that special needs group that I found, the parent group, some of them had Down syndrome, some of them had severe this or severe that, cerebral palsy, but everything that they went through, even if it was a different symptom or a different problem, it still interrupts your life and it still makes it difficult, say, to find self-care time or to connect with other people because they just don't understand your child or they don't understand what you're dealing with when you can't respond in 10 minutes to a text or anything like that we go through. So finding that connection with any other special needs parents, but especially ones with your particular issue, they'll understand more than everybody. So when you're having a hard day, you can message them or call them and say, I'm seeing this, I'm having a hard day, and they're there for you. I met some people right away that were further along the same track as Wyatt, but a few years earlier, and they had been through what we were just going through. So they really understood and they were able to listen and not tell us what to do if we didn't need it, but just even be there to hear you and to make you feel like you're not crazy. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely do. And listening, I think, is one of the kindest things that we can do for people. And what I hear you saying basically is that community made all the difference for you. And I think too, when there's a bond when it's a special needs family, because only that family knows that journey and what that's like. And so I think there is a lot of support. And so I hope that as people listen today, that if they're not in a support group, will find one or do whatever's best for them, even if it's virtual, because I think that
Oh,
would
yes.
be so very helpful. I want to thank you, Laurel, for coming and for sharing today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And on each episode, as I've told you, I want to share a funny story of something about my brother. And I hope that over time, as the Raising Special Needs podcast continues, that some of you will share some of your lighthearted moments or funny stories with your special needs child or just the family, because the Bible says that laughter does our heart good like a medicine. So we just want to give you a triple dose of antibiotics and bring that smile to your face. And so I want to share this story with you. My brother Donnie always wanted to be a rock star. Well, that wasn't going to happen, and I knew that. He didn't have a very good singing voice, but I don't either. And he couldn't really play any instruments, but he did try to play the guitar. So as the big sister, I thought, everybody deserves, to have a dream. So got a really nice picture of him with a suit coat over his shoulder, and he did like some poses for the picture. And I said, what do you want to call your album? And he said, Living the Dream. So I put that on there, and I took out an ad in the paper, and I would send in a little bit of money now and then for, the music. Well, my brother sat me down one day and he said, Monica, I'm not making enough money with you as my manager, so you're fired. So there you have it, my little brother Donnie and all of the funny things. So join us next week when we come back. We will talk about the challenges, the joys, the blessings, and yes, the really lighthearted moments of raising special needs kids. We will put in our show notes the Facebook page and all of that good stuff so that we can connect. Thank you again for joining us, and we will talk again next time.
Thank you for listening to Raising Special Needs Kids, a safe place for honest stories, practical help, and a whole lot of encouragement. We are so glad we're on this journey together, and we will see you next time.